Hi guys, how are you? This is my first webcam experiment, so bear with me and Mariah. We're going to be doing the natural selection and allele frequency lab, and so I think it's showing on your screen, hopefully. If not, I have printed it here. It looks like this, and it has some bunnies on it. Okay, so I'm just going to read the introduction if you can follow along. So evolution can be described as the change in allele frequencies of a gene pool over time. Natural selection can place pressure upon specific phenotypes and cause a change in the frequency of alleles that produce those phenotypes. For example, predators often select as prey individuals that are different from the majority of the population. From a litter of mostly normal colored gray rabbits, an eagle would probably be most likely to select an albino rabbit than a normal colored one. The reason for this seems obvious. The albino is different and stands out among the population. The eagle represents a natural selection pressure that selects against the albino rabbit and the genes that produce that albino condition. So I could not find beans at my house. Strange but true. So we are using a different type of bean.
Jelly beans.
Jelly beans. And so we picked colors green and orange. So green is going to stand for the big G or the gray allele. And the little g, the only way you can get the albino rabbit, or in our case, the orange rabbit, is if you are born with two little g alleles. So these orange ones, put it to the camera. Okay, so the orange bunnies are little g, but the green bunnies
are big G.
big G, or big G, little g. You don't know what their genotype is just by looking at them. So the big idea here is that natural selection is going to be acting on a phenotype, not the genotype. Okay, so that's like the big idea. So one of the reasons why we're doing the lab for you is because I didn't know if you had 50 beans or jelly beans. And so we're going to do it as a simulation, or beads, thank you. So these are the things you will need. Two colored pencils, and we just got green and orange because those are the color for jelly beans.
Which there are 50 of.
1 second, sweetheart. So instead, if you want to use solid line, dotted line, that's totally fine. I couldn't find a paper bag unless it was like one of those big old Target bags. So we're just using a plastic bag, and I promise not to look. Okay, so I'm going to close my eyes. The graph paper is actually on your lab sheet, so you will need to print this out. Mariah, can you stop, please? Okay, so it's on your lab sheet, so you don't have to worry about graph paper. You'll just use this. And then it says the beans, but again, you don't need to worry about that because Mariah and I are running the simulation for you. So, procedure, and I'm just going to scroll. Hopefully this is showing up. Assume that the pinto beans, jelly beans, represent alleles that produce normal colored green rabbits, and that the green fur is dominant to the orange fur. The orange beans then represent a recessive allele that produces the orange rabbits in a homozygous condition. Do you see how I'm substituting orange and green instead of gray and white? Okay. I picked green because I thought, oh, maybe the bunnies can hide in the green grass. I don't know. The dark colored or the green jelly beans represent the dominant allele, so the big G. And as long as you have one big G, you're going to be a green rabbit, okay, the dominant rabbit. Selection against the green rabbits takes place about 25% of the time. That means that the eagle will remove about 25% of the normal or green phenotype every generation. Selection against the orange or albino or little g rabbits is 100%. That means every time I pick two orange jelly beans, that rabbit dies. It's not going to survive to reproduce in the next generation. So, step one, place the 50 of the orange and the 50 of the green in a baggie, and it's supposed to be paper, but again, I'm going to close my eyes and not look, so I'm not cheating. And I'm going to shake the bag, and without looking, maybe I'll have Mariah reach and pick 2 beans. And these are going to represent the individual rabbit's genotype, and then I'm going to set them aside, and I'm going to continue to remove the jelly beans 2 at a time until I have 50 rabbits. Okay, so that means I'm using 100 alleles or 100 beans. Okay, and then I'm going to arrange them in 2 columns, and I'm going to do it by color. Okay, and so all the ones that are orange are going to die and are not going to be put back into the bag for the next generation. Okay, so we're going to get started. Okay, so Mariah, go ahead and start picking. Okay, so the first baby rabbit that's born, baby bunny, come on.
It's an orange. I'm kind of scared.
No, sweetheart. You need to pick 2 beans. No. So we know it's going to have 1 little G and 2 little G. So this poor baby bunny is going to get picked off by an eagle and it's going to die. And it's never going to enter the gene pool again. Okay. Next. Come on, you have to go fast.
So sad.
That's nature, sweetheart. It's a cycle and it's a circle of life. Okay, she's picked another.
You did not make this correctly.
Mariah, she picked another bunny that's albino.
Come on, make it up.
Okay, the next bunny is heterozygous. It's going to be green because it has the big G allele, and it's going to survive. Okay, so I'm going to put it in the survivor pile.
And
she got another one that's heterozygous.
yay!
Okay. So we're going to continue on and keep picking beans, and I will tell you the totals. Keep going.
Okay. Green and green.
So big G, big G.
Does that mean live or die?
Live, because it's going to have green fur, or the gray fur, and it's going to become camouflage. Okay, what about this one? It's orange. So that means little G, it's going to be picked off.
I said.
Okay, now Mariah just picked the 4th green bunny. Now the directions told us every 4th or 25% of the time an eagle does eat a gray rabbit. So this one's actually going to die as well. Okay, so
what about this one?
Now this one is going to survive. Okay, so this one's going to survive. Okay, and so she's going to keep picking, and I'm going to take a break. Hi.
Welcome back.
Okay, so we finished pulling, so here are results. Okay, so, and I'll give you numbers, but you can see that we made different piles. And then here's our piles of our dead albino baby bunnies. I know, it's kind of sad. I know, but that's how life works.
And right now we're separating.
And we have not yet separated out the 25% of the survivors that the eagles would have normally eaten. So we're going to do that real quick, and we will be right back. And we're back.
Hi, we're back.
Okay. So we did our counting, and we already removed some of the surviving. Can you guys see? Yeah. So here are all the dead bunnies that didn't make it that were eaten by eagles. Okay, so you can kind of see. Okay. So on your paper for generation 1, so we started with 50 big G's, or the green ones, and 50 little G's. And that was written for us. The percent was 50% were green and 50% were orange. So the frequency is going to be 50 divided by our total 100. So our frequency is 0.5. Okay. So I'm going to just make a little modification here to my paper. All I did to my paper was where it says big G, I wrote in the word green to remind me that the big G represents the green allele. And where it says allele little g, I just wrote orange. Okay, and then Mariah and I counted, she actually counted all the oranges, and we had 20 orange beans left. So we wrote a 20 there. And I counted the greens, and we had 38 greens. So for the big G, I put a 38. So At the end of the first round, we had 38 greens and 20 oranges. And so that means that we had a total of 58 beans left. So to figure out the percentage, you're going to take 38 and divide by 100. Oops, nope, just kidding. I was just kidding there. It is the total. So it's 38 divided by 58. Okay, and so I'm going to take my little iPhone calculator. Okay, so, and you're going to have to figure out the rest of these. So I'm going to show you right now how to do this. So you're going to take the 38 green jelly beans. Okay, so I just typed in, oops, there we go, 38. And you're dividing by the total beans left. So divided by 58. There we go. And equals 0.655. So that's what I'm going to write down. Okay, so maybe I'll round up to 0.66. Okay, so we're going to write that on our paper where it says percentage. Oh, actually, I'd have to multiply by 100, so that's 66%. And then my frequency is going to be 0.66. Okay, so that's what it should look like on your paper right now. And then because our percentage should equal 100, I could just subtract 100% from 66, or I could do 20 divided by my total number of beans left, which is 58, and I should end up with 44% and a frequency of 0.44. Okay, so you're going to write that in. Okay, so your paper should look like this right now. Okay. You guys see? There we go. All right. We're going to continue to pick, and I'm going to give you the results for generations 2 through 5, and you're going to then finish up the rest of the lab. So I'm not going to calculate the percentage and frequency for you because I already talked to you about how to do that. So again, for percentage, you're going to take how many beans are left, which is what I'm going to give you that number, and you're going to divide by the total. So you'll have to add up the number of big G's and the number of little g's and divide big G by the total and then little g by the total. And then the frequency is just the decimal of that number. Okay, so we'll be back in a little bit. Hey guys, so we're back after doing all the pulls and data collection. So one thing, after we pulled the organisms that died from the eagle, so all the bunnies that died, we had to put back in the same percentage of survivors. So we didn't just put in the beans that survived, we had to do it by percentage. So then we had to recount out green beans, jelly beans, and orange jelly beans and add those in. So here's our data that we collected. I don't know if you guys can see this very clearly. Maybe I'll step back here. So what we did was after the first round, we had 66% big G's. So I had to put in 66 green jelly beans. And we only had 44% orange jelly beans, so I had to go put in 44 orange. So we were always pulling from a bag of 100, but when we calculate the survivors, the percentage of survival, it's how many we have in the number column. So 49 plus 21 will be your next calculation. So 49 plus 21 is 70. So you would do 49 divided by 70 to get your percentage, and I believe it's actually 70, coincidentally. And then to get this percentage, it's going to be 21 divided by 70, which is 30%, I believe, because you're just taking 100 from 70. So I want you to do the rest of the percentages and frequencies based on my numbers. Okay, so here's my big G numbers again, and I'm going to move this paper over so you can kind of see the little g's. So record those down real quick. okay? And you're going to do the frequency and percentages, okay? And